Hello, my name is Carrie Brown and I am with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today, I'm going to be reading to you chapters 1 and 2 of Calendar Mysteries New Year's Eve Thieves. Written by Ron Roy, illustrated by John Stephen Gurney, published by Random House, New York. Chapter 1, The Face at the Window. "It's your turn, Nate," Bradley said. Bradley, Brian, and Lucy were at Nate's house, sitting on the floor around his Monopoly board. Nate was petting his new puppy, Socks. "I know it is," he said as he reached for the dice. Suddenly, Socks snatched a pile of play money and raced across the room. Nate chased the puppy and trapped him behind a chair. "Socks, give me the money," Nate said in a stern voice. Socks dropped the money and licked Nate's hand. Nate grabbed the money. "Thank you, Socks," he said. "Good dog." "Socks wants a toy," Lucy said. "Puppies need stuff to chew on." "He chews my shoes all the time," Nate said, "and my mittens, and my hat." "But that's why he should have a toy," Bradley said. "You should get him something of his own to play with." "Yeah, let's go buy him a toy," Brian added. "Mrs. Wong has lots of pet stuff in her shop." The kids grabbed their jackets and headed out the front door. "Be a good boy, Socks," Nate told his puppy, "and don't eat the money." Socks flopped on the floor and wagged his tail. The kids walked toward Main Street. Snow covered the ground and the tree branches. People on the street smiled at each other and said Happy New Year. The big clock over the bank read 3 p.m. December 31st. "The party at our house is at 6 o'clock, Bradley reminded the others, "but my mom wants us there before it gets dark. After we buy Socks his toy, we'll have time to go back to Nate's and finish the game." When the kids walked into Furry Feet Pet Shop, Mrs. Wong was feeding the goldfish. "Hi, kids," she said. "How was your Christmas?" "Mine was great," Nate said. "I got a puppy from my sister." Mrs. Wong smiled. "I know," she said. "Ruth Rose and I loved keeping it a big secret from you." "How was your vacation in Florida?" Bradley asked. "Most of it was wonderful," Mrs. Wong said, "but I dropped my cell phone into the ocean. It sank right to the bottom, and while I was away, my house got burglarized. A thief came in and stole my laptop computer." "Oh my goodness," Lucy said. "Did you call the police?" "Yes, and Officer Fallon came right to my house," Mrs. Wong said. "The only thing missing was the laptop. We don't know how the thief got in because none of the doors or windows had been broken." "I hope they catch whoever did it," Brian said. "Me too," Mrs. Wong said. "I miss email." Nate looked at the shelves of pet supplies. "I need a new toy for my puppy Socks," he said. "Lots of choices," Mrs. Wong said. "Does Socks want something soft and furry or something rubbery that squeaks?" Nate laughed. "He wants both," he said. Mrs. Wong showed Nate a purple rubber figure shaped like a big peanut. It had fuzzy green hair. "Then he should love this," she said. "It's called Mr. Purple." She squeezed Mr. Purple's belly and it squeaked. Mrs. Wong held the figure under Nate's nose. "Take a sniff," she said. "It smells just like peanut butter," Nate said. "Yup. Dogs love peanut butter," Mrs. Wong told him. "Perfect," Nate said. "How much is it?" Mrs. Wong smiled. "Free. It's my Christmas gift to Socks," she said. She slipped the toy into a bag and handed it to Nate. "Thank you," Nate said. "I'll bring Socks over so he can thank you too." The kids left the shop. It had started to snow and the flakes landed on their hats and noses. "We have a thief in Greenlawn," Brian said. "I wonder if he's robbed anybody else." Nate glanced around. "Look for someone with sneaky eyes," he said in a low voice as they walked back to his house. "He could be anywhere." Bradley laughed at Nate. "Your eyes look sneaky," he said, "especially when you're trying to cheat at Monopoly." Nate threw some snow at Bradley, and the kids ran all the way back to Woody Street. When Nate opened his front door, Socks was chewing on a comic book. "No, Socks! Bad dog!" Nate cried. He took the comic book away and pulled Mr. Purple out of the bag. "Look what I got for you." Socks grabbed the toy and raced toward the kitchen. "How's your comic book?" Lucy asked Nate. "One page is ripped," he said, "but I can fix it with some tape." He walked to the desk near the window. After he found the tape, he looked at the window at the thermostat on the front porch. "Guys, it's down to 37 degrees!" he yelled. Their parents had told the kids they could sleep in the Pinto's barn in their sleeping bags after the party, but only if the temperature doesn't go below freezing, they had added. "I bet we can't sleep in the barn tonight," Brian said. "But I love sleeping in your barn," Nate told Bradley and Brian. "Smelling the hay makes me think I'm a cowboy." "And I like hearing our pony, Polly, snore," Bradley said. "Best of all is the pigeons in the loft," Brian said. "They make these cool noises all night." He flapped his arms and said, "Coo, coo, coo." Bradley and Nate laughed. "Well, if it's too cold to sleep in the barn, at least maybe we'll be allowed to stay up till midnight," Brian added. Lucy didn't say anything. She looked sad. "What's the matter, Lucy?" Bradley asked. "Don't you want to have a party and a sleepover?" Lucy sighed. "Sure, but my parents are going to miss my birthday," she said. Lucy's parents were in Arizona helping to build a new school for Native American kids. They had been there for a year while Lucy stayed in Greenlawn with her cousin Dink and his parents. "When is your birthday?" Bradley asked. "January 1st, Lucy said. "Cool," Brian said. "That's tomorrow." Suddenly they all heard a noise outside. They looked up. A face wearing a dark ski mask was staring through the window. Nate screamed and Socks came running. He barked at the face in the window. "It's the laptop thief!" Brian yelled. Chapter 2. The Limping Man. The scary face disappeared. The kids ran to the window. They saw two guys running across Dink's yard next door. The runners disappeared behind the house. "Did they have sneaky eyes?" Brian asked Nate. "I couldn't tell," Nate said. "I only saw one face, and it was wearing a ski mask." "But why were they peeking in here?" Lucy asked. "Maybe this house is their next burglary," Brian said. "They were checking to see if anyone was home, and Nate's scream chased them away." "Look, there they are again," Brian said. The kids watched the two strangers creep around the side of Dink's house. One of the men was limping. He wore a cowboy hat, partly covering a long ponytail. The lower half of his face was hidden by a red bandana. A backpack hung from one shoulder. The other stranger wore a ski mask. It had holes for his eyes and mouth. Now the strangers were standing on the Duncan snowy sidewalk. Then they walked up onto Dink's porch and peered through the window. The one in the ski mask said something to the other one in the cowboy hat. The kids could see the men's breath as they talked. "We should call your aunt and uncle," Brian said to Lucy. "Those guys are going to rob Dink's house." "Dink's parents aren't home," Lucy said. "They're at your house with your parents getting ready for the party tonight. Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose are there too. Burglars always break in while people aren't home," Nate whispered, "like at Mrs. Wong's house." "Maybe we should tell Officer Fallon," Brian said. "But we don't know if those are the guys who took her laptop," Lucy said. "They could just be tourists who got lost." Nate laughed. "Tourists don't come to Greenlawn," he said. "There's nothing here for them to see. Besides, tourists don't put on masks and peek in people's windows." The strangers started walking away. They left big footprints in the snow. Bradley grabbed all their coats. "Come on, let's follow them," he said. The four kids hurried out the door. The sun was behind the trees. It would be dark soon. They stayed well behind the strangers. Up ahead, the two men were leaning together talking. The one with the limp was tall. The other one was short. Their breath made little clouds. They walked down Woody Street, then Silver Circle, then past Greenlawn Elementary School. "Where do you think they're going?" Lucy whispered. "They're headed down Main Street," Nate said. "Maybe they're planning to rob the bank." "Or Mrs. Wong's pet shop," Brian said. "They already robbed her house." The bank and most of the shops were closed on New Year's Eve. The two strangers passed the fitness center, then stopped in front of Ellie's Diner. Her lights were on, and a big sign in her window said open on New Year's Eve. The 4 kids hid behind a mailbox and a lamppost. "They better not try to rob her," Bradley said. "I heard that Ellie knows karate." "Maybe they're just going in for a hot chocolate," Lucy said. The guy in the ski mask took a small camera from his pocket. He snapped a picture of Ellie's, and they both walked inside. "Uh-oh," Bradley whispered. "Why do they need a picture of Ellie's?" "Crooks like to study a place before they break in," Nate said. "They'll probably come back after she's closed." "I'm going in," Bradley said. "I want to check out these guys up close." "But they probably saw your face when they looked through Nate's window," Brian said. "If you walk into Ellie's, they'll know we're following them." Bradley was wearing a yellow ski hat that had holes in it for his eyes and mouth. He pulled it down over his face. "They won't know it's me," he said through the mouth hole. "What are you going to do in there?" Brian asked. "I'll just listen," Bradley said. "Maybe they'll say something about Mrs. Wong's laptop." Bradley checked for traffic, then scooted across the street. In front of Ellie's, he peeked through the glass, or tried to. The glass was foggy, and he couldn't see a thing. He made sure his face was covered and walked in. The bell over the door jingled. A silver banner over the counter said Happy New Year. The 2 strangers were at the counter. The one in the cowboy hat was handing Ellie some money. They each picked up a takeout cup. "Enjoy your hot teas," Ellie told them. At least they're not robbing her, Bradley thought. The men headed for the door, passing Bradley. They didn't even glance at him, but he looked right at them. The tall one had a tanned face and hands. A tan in the middle of winter? "Hi, Bradley," Ellie said. "Or is it Brian? And why is your face covered?" "It's Bradley," he said. Those 2 guys who were just in here. Did they say anything funny?" Ellie looked at him. "Who wants to know?" she asked. It's like a bet we're having," Bradley said. "About their voices." Ellie shook her head. "They just asked for 2 hot teas to go," she said. "Oh, and they said Greenlawn has some real nice houses." Bradley thanked Ellie and hurried outside. Real nice houses? Thieves always pick nice houses to rob. The strangers were standing in front of Furry Feet Pet Shop, looking through the window. The one in the ski mask yanked it up to take a sip of his tea. Then he snapped a picture of the shop. Bradley stared. The guy in the ski mask was wearing lipstick. It was a woman, and her face was tan too. Bradley noticed something else. As the woman had taken the camera from her coat pocket, something had fallen out onto the sidewalk. The man and woman walked away, crossing Oak Street and heading past to the post office. Bradley ran to pick up what the woman had dropped. It was a piece of green paper, folded in half. When Bradley unfolded it, he saw Shangri-La Hotel printed in fancy letters at the top. Below that, someone had printed something. Bradley read it quickly, but it didn't make any sense. "It's like a code," he muttered to himself. "A secret burglar code." Thank you. Be sure to tune in next week for chapters 3 and 4. Goodbye.